This video is going to show you how to create a sketch from an imported image that you're going to trace. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Onshape and create a new document. And I'm going to call this XC for cross country dash your name. And here we have a blank document. To bring the logo in, I've already downloaded a logo that I want to use. You can get that from Classroom. And you just say import, and here's our logo. And now we need to create a new sketch plane so that we can put that logo onto a sketch. So I'm going to click the front plane. I will hit the N key so that it goes normal to the sketch plane. And here's where the insert image button is. And now, because this image is already part of my Onshape document, I can just click this and it will automatically bring it in. Now, what it means by draw image rectangle is that is to size the logo. Now, I would like my logo to be centered on the origin. So what I'm going to actually do, since I clicked already on the origin, I'm going to hover over this origin, which is obviously our 0, 0 point. And this little constraint here means that our sketch box or rectangle was constrained to the origin. I'm going to delete the sketch entity there. And now I'm going to be allowed to drag this around. And basically I want my cross-country logo to be approximately in the center of the origin. Okay. Now, if you know what size you want your logo or whatever it is that you're drawing to be, you can click this box right now. I'm going to make it 3 by 2. Well, I guess I'll just let the aspect ratio be maintained. If you really want this to be centered on the origin too, the other thing you can do is draw a construction line from the midpoint of one of these lines down to the midpoint of the other line. And then what you can imagine we can do is, using the midpoint constraint, I'm going to pick my line and pick my origin, and that will put the origin on the midpoint of this line, which automatically makes my image be in the center, or on the origin. The center of the image on the origin, let's say. Okay, and now I'm going to green check out of this sketch. The reason I do that is I like to maintain the image sketch as a separate sketch from what I'm actually then going to draw. So I'm going to draw another sketch on that same sketch plane, which was the front plane. And now what I'm going to do is just trace this image. So I'm going to drop this down and pick ellipse. Now, this is the advantage of having it centered. I can click on this origin and automatically draw an ellipse that is centered on my logo. And I'm just going to approximate it. Basically, trace it if you want. So I have one ellipse. Now, rather than just drawing a second ellipse, I'm actually going to use what's called the offset tool. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to select this ellipse, and I'm going to drag that arrow, and now you can see basically what it's doing is creating the exact same size or shape ellipse, just offset at a distance. So that way, I know that my ellipse that I draw is exactly the same, so that the wall thickness along this outside is the same. So I'm just going to leave that as is. And now you can click out to get out of the, hit escape to get out of the offset tool. And now what you can do is start tracing your features here. What I'd like you to do is trace, you can go ahead and trace a C. And it automatically snapped to that line if you saw. So I'm going to hit undo. I don't want that, and I'm going to go back into the line tool. You can hit the L tool if you want. And if you don't want it to snap, you can zoom in so that you don't get too close to that line. And now you can just continue to trace your C. If you look now, you can see that if I'm at a different angle, this line will just draw sort of at a random angle, but at some point, if you snap, you can see that it's now saying, I'm going to make this line parallel to the one that it highlighted in orange, and that is what you will want. So I'm going to click once that turns orange. It's not going to happen over here because I don't have that line drawn yet, but if you notice, it now recognizes the other line and says, oh, you probably want that to be perpendicular to it. The other thing you can do is trace that. I don't know if you saw what I did here, but I'm going to hover over this point and then draw a line straight across. I haven't clicked yet, I've just hovered. And now if you look, it's saying, oh, I'll make that point across from that dot and perpendicular to the orange line. And so in this way, you can make your sketch much more accurate to what you would want. Now this should pop up as parallel again. This will automatically be horizontal. You can use your middle mouse button to drag around. And now you can see that there is the orange button up above. So in this way, I'm going to just continually make this sketch be approximately what I want. And you can keep going from here. I'm not going to show you the entire video of me tracing because that would be time consuming, but pause and come back and you'll see a finished sketch. Okay, now you'll see that my C is completely done, and it would be really nice if we could just copy this C over to the next one. So what you normally do in CAD is rather than saying copy, you actually pattern it. And that just creates a repeating pattern of a certain sketch entity. So I'm going to click this drop down and say linear pattern, because we want it to go in a linear direction. And I'm just going to draw a box, not really draw a box, but a selection box, around everything I want to pattern. And now you can see it's giving me 3 C's that are all 1 inch apart. So rather than 3, I only want 2, so I'm going to change this number in here to 2 and hit enter. And now they're still too far apart, so I'm just going to drag this box. And since we're just doing more of a visual representation of this rather than a specific dimension, I'm just going to drag that box until I'm happy with where it's placed. And hit that down, and now that you can see my little green mouse has a left checkbox, I'm going to hit that left mouse button and it will pattern my sketch. There we go, now we have 2 C's. So to finish this off, I am going to trace the arrow now. What I'd like you to do to get practice with the trim tool is draw this right through the C and only draw half of this arrow. Now you can come back through the middle and make sure when you're drawing it, at the end when you close your sketch, you want to make sure that it's selecting that existing first point, and you know that it is because that point turns orange. So there we go, that's now clicked up there. If you remember, construction lines help us, they're like helper lines, so I'm going to select this and change that to a construction line because that line actually doesn't need to be there. Alright, so now what I'd like you to do is just gain experience with the mirror tool. So the mirror tool allows you to create a mirror image of sketch entities. So I'm going to click this, and you can see it tells me right here, select a mirror line. So my mirror line is this construction line that just went across the middle of the page. Now it's telling me to select the entities to be mirrored. So this just means what do you want to mirror across the way. So I'm going to click every line that I just drew that made up this arrow. There aren't too many of them. And then I'll hit enter or come back up and click that button to get out of the command. And so now you'll see we have an arrow, but it's crossing through the C, not a way that's representative of the original sketch. So I'm just going to come in and draw some closing lines here, if you want to call it that. Now you can see it continues to keep drawing the lines, so rather than coming up and hitting the button every time, I'm going to hit the L tool to get out of it, and then the L tool to get back into the tool. And I just find that easier and faster. And I'm going to draw one everywhere where this arrow should be cut. And that's it. And so now what I want you to get used to using is this trim tool. It's like cutting a line with scissors, which is why it has the scissor button. And I'm going to cut the arrow everywhere where we don't need an actual line to represent the arrow. Oops, I did something wrong there, you can see, so I'm going to hit undo. And there you go. You can continue and go through all of these lines. And now everything is a closed sketch. We should be able to extrude it now if you want to turn this into a three-dimensional object. So I'm going to, it already automatically picked my ellipse, it looks like, so I'm going to go through and select everything else. And it looks like it didn't get that one. You can always rotate this in 3 dimensions just to see and make sure that you got everything that you wanted. And I think an inch looks far too long. So I'm just going to drag it back using the arrow. You could also type in a depth there. And now you see this is what our logo would look like. This is now over here. I'm going to hide my original image. And it actually created lots of different colors on there for us. That's because it considers the different parts. And that's something we'll get into later. But you can see this is exactly the shape that we were going for. So that's it. That walked you through how to create a logo in Onshape by tracing an image.